Welcome to section 4, so 1.4 now on populations and sampling. Before you start this lesson, please take out your flashcards, spend 5 minutes going through them, check that you can recite the information, you know it exactly what's on the back compared to what's on the front, okay? And then test yourself on some of these things that we did in lesson 1. Write down 2 examples of qualitative data. Qualit, I think of the word English literature, words. Qualitative data might be colour of cars. It might be the name of your dog. It might be anything that's got words as the answers, okay? Write down an example of quantitative data. That's numerical data. Data that you've collected that has a numerical answer. So height of plants, number of leaves on a tree. Now, discrete, however, cannot be height of plants. It could be number of leaves on a tree. Remember, discrete means those that only take certain values. So number of cars that pass your house in the next hour, for example. And then quantitative, continuous data could be the height of your classmates. Okay, moving on then. So we're going to be talking about a population to start with, and what I suggest you do is on a flashcard you write the word population on one side and you've got this definition: everything or everybody that could be possibly involved in an investigation. And I'll go through some examples once you've written that down, please. So pause the video, write down that key point. Population, everything or everybody that can be involved in an investigation. Okay, so say you're doing an investigation about what everybody in your school thinks about the canteen food. Your population is everybody that could be involved in the investigation. It's everybody in the school, all the members of your school. A Scouts group wants to know if the children who attend the Scouts can attend a camp next weekend. The population is the children who attend the Scouts. They're the people that they're asking. A head teacher wants information about year 11 post-16 choices. The population is year 11, the students in year 11. A delivery driver wants information about the number of miles travelled by its delivery lorries. The population is the delivery lorries, okay? So it hasn't got to be a person, it could be a thing, something you're collecting the data from. A year 10 student wants to know if other students in their school think that lunch break is long enough. The population is the other students in the school, okay? All the members of the school. A company wants to know if its male employees know about paternity leave arrangements. The population is the male employees, okay? So everybody or everything that could be involved in that investigation. Now, a census is a survey or investigation with data taken from every member of the population. So, for example, say the head teacher with the year 11 post-16 choices, if he asked or she asked every single person in year 11, that would be called a census. A company wants to know if its male employees know about paternity leave. If that company asked every single person who's male in their company, that would be a census. So a census is a survey or investigation with data taken from every member of the population. Census on one side of your flashcard, please. Survey or investigation with data taken from every member of the population on the other side of your flashcard, please. Pause the video while you do that. So this circle represents exactly that. The circle has all the population inside it. All the blue people represent the people within the population. And can you see every single person's being asked? I'm going to compare that to a sample in a minute where you don't ask everybody. Now, the Office for National Statistics is a website, a government website, ons.gov.uk, that has data on it from a census that is carried out every 10 years. In the UK, and the last one was conducted, as at the time of recording, the last one was conducted in 2021, and all of that information is on there for you to look up. Now, a census in this respect is a legal requirement to be carried out. Okay, every population, every member, every household has to be accounted for and has to fill out this census. And as it says, it gives a picture of all the people and households in England and Wales, and it helps set aside then money for things like budget, so it gives a number of schools that are required and different things, and employment rates in different areas. So it gives the government lots of information about what's happening in England and Wales, so they can make their decisions based upon it. Okay, so the types of things that are covered: aging, demographics, education, housing, etc. Okay, so it's lots of things there, and it's very interesting actually. You can look at the historic census data and get data from 2011 and earlier, and this goes back a long way, and it's kind of nice to see how it's changing. Look, the 1961 census statistics, you can look at how it's changed between now and then, basically, or between then and now, and it's quite an interesting read. So if you have time to look up the census, then I'd strongly recommend doing that. Okay, back to our presentation though. So a census is all members of the population are asked, and remember, a population could be all the books in a library if the investigation was regarding how many pages in a library, how many pages each book has in a library, for example. So it doesn't have to be a person, it could be anything in terms of the population. Right, then we go on to a sample. So census is everybody, a sample is part of the population. So here we go, look, they're coloured blue and orange. You've only asked a part of the population, not everyone is chosen. Now we have to be very careful when selecting a sample, and there's going to be a whole section on sample selection shortly, because we want to avoid bias. A bias is a sample that doesn't represent the population fairly. Okay, so we have to try and pick a sample that represents the characteristics of the population. The results from the sample can be used to make conclusions then for the whole population. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are a Year 11 student and you want to find out the type of music that Year 11 students at your school like. If you only ask your close friends, if you sample only your close friends, you are not going to necessarily have a fair representation of the population of everybody in Year 11, because most of the time, or sometimes, your friends have a similar music taste. Okay, therefore it would be biased because you haven't asked a wide enough sample, a wide enough range of people, right? Okay, so let's get some flashcards written on those things. So the first one you've done is census. The second one is a sample. Okay, can you say that a sample contains information about part of the population? Right, how do we pick a sample? Now there's lots of ways of doing it, but they all require a sampling. Well, they don't all require. They often require a sampling frame. Could you just get this written on a flashcard, please? A sampling frame is a list of all the members of a population. This is where you can choose your sample from if you'd like to. Okay, you can choose a sample from the sampling frame. In some instances, we're going to go through loads of different types of sampling, and some of them you do require a list. That might be something like the dentist list, okay, or the electoral roll. Okay. Or the class register, the school register, if that's your population. Okay, the other one is a sampling unit. And these are the people that are to be sampled. So in the case of the head teacher getting the opinions of the Year 11 students, the sampling units are the Year 11 students. So for example, students in a school. And let's just say what a bias sample is a sample that does not represent the population fairly. So for example, if surveying students at a mixed school and the sample only contains girls, then that's no good. We can avoid bias by using random sampling methods, and that we're going to cover really shortly. Okay, so if you get those written down on flashcards. Right, we need to know advantages and disadvantages of a census versus a sample. A census is unbiased because you're representing the whole population. Okay, takes into account the entire population. Therefore, it's more accurate. Okay. Disadvantages, though, it takes a lot of time, time consuming, and as we've said, if something takes more time, it costs more money, so it's expensive. There's lots of data to manage, which can be problematic. Purely because the collection of the data, the correction of the data, you know, when you've got raw data, you need to look through it all, and also the processing of that data. And it's difficult to ensure the whole population is used. It's always the aim, but how can you be sure you've got everybody? However, a sample is cheaper because it's quicker to collect and there's less data to analyze, to consider afterwards. Okay. Disadvantage of a sample, though, is it may be biased and it's never going to be completely representative of the whole population, which at the end of the day is what you want. You want to be able to have a sample that's as representative as possible so that it can then represent the whole population. Okay. Right. What do you think needs to be considered when selecting a sample of people to ask? And we need to remember that it needs to represent the whole population. Pause the video, give that a little think before restarting the video. Okay, so let's see if you came up with any of these points. One of the main things is actually the sample size. You don't want a sample size that's too small because you're not going to necessarily include everyone, but also you don't want a sample size too large because it's then becoming time consuming, etc. So we need to think about the sample size. That's one of the key things. The second one is asking a wide range of people, a wide variety of different people, and you want to try and find a method, a sampling method, a way of picking your sample that encompasses that has a way of to represent the majority of the population, because we want to try and avoid bias. Okay, so sample size is really important. You want to ask a wide variety of different people that represent views of the whole population. Okay, and that's tricky to do, but in the next section we're going to talk about different sampling methods that will show us how we're going to do that. Okay, I hope that's helped. See you in the next video.